Is this the meeting where the preliminary round will be held?
Hi, Vedang, you were saying something?
Ma'am, is this the meeting where the preliminary round will be held? I missed.
Yes, you're in the right room. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am, my partner is joining in a minute.
No issues.
Good morning to the respective judges and participants. Laksha, since all the judges and all the teammates have joined, I think this room can start. Can introduce the judges before you start.
Yes, sir. So good morning to one and all present here. I'm Laksha and I'm going to be the court master for today's proceedings. I'd like to start by welcoming our judges first, Ms. Tanya Singh and Mr. Rishabh Malviya. I'll be introducing them. Ms. Tanya is an associate in the dispute resolution team at the Mumbai office of Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. She has experience in commercial litigation and arbitration and is currently assisting her team handle disputes, both of general commercial nature as well as public and regulatory disputes across various sectors, including administrative, white collar, sports media and entertainment, food and beverage, planning and environment, and public sector projects. Mr. Rishabh Malviya is an associate in the disputes practice at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, Mumbai. He completed his LLB from ILS Pune in 2017 and obtained his LLM in International Arbitration and Dispute Resolutions from the National University of Singapore in 2018. I'd like to welcome our judges and say that we're honored to be in your presence. I'd like to proceed. Yes.
Thank you, Laksha.
Thank you, Laksha. And hi, everybody. I hope all of you all are safe.
I'd now like to proceed with the rules of the competition. Each speaker has a time of 15 minutes. That translates to every team having a total time of 30 minutes. I'll be showing placards when 3 minutes and 1 minute are left, respectively. Rebuttals and sur-rebuttals are for 2 minutes each. 2 minutes in total, that means 1 minute to each team. The first speaker may yield their time to the second speaker after they're done with their presentation. Extra time may be granted up to the discretion of judges. And judges are free to give their feedback after the speakers are done with their rounds. I hope everyone is clear with the rules. Okay, so if the judges permit, we may start with today's proceedings. All right, the petitioners may begin. Thank you.
Should I start?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. May it please the court, my team code is Jatin Sharma and Mahima Gupta. Counsel for the petitioner in the present case of Cure Community versus Republic of Replimento. With your lordship permission, may the counsel proceed with the facts of the case?
Yes, please.
Statement of facts. Republic of Replimento is a secular, socialist, economic, and democratic nation which consists of people from different strata of the society. People from different religions, people from different educational and financial ground, etc. Almost all the countries of the world are the financial members of the International Nations Organization, including Republic of Replimento, because of which Republic of Replimento gained public popularity and has immense boost in their economy and in their image at the international platform. There is a law in Republic of Replimento which categorizes consensual sexual intercourse between the same-sex people as unnatural offense, which is against the fundamental right. The punishment of this offense is 10 years of imprisonment. Interestingly, almost majority of the countries in the world decriminalize the same-sex intercourse, but there are also some countries in the world where same-sex relation is still criminalized. A writ petition was filed before the highest court of Republic of Replimento to decriminalize the consensual sexual act of adults, that is, persons have the age 18 years who are competent to consent in private, because it violates the fundamental rights of the people. The highest court gave the judgment in the favor of the petitioner, but they don't discuss the civil rights for the LGBTQI plus community. After this judgment, many writ petitions have been filed before the High Court of many states to discuss the civil rights of LGBTQI plus community and to read the word person as defined under the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 and Special Marriage Act 1954, so as to include people of the same sex. Because of which the Republic of Replimento answered by opposing all the contentions of these petitions by giving such statements as it against the culture and ethos of the country. In order to avoid multiple and conflicting decisions on the same issue by the several high courts, and the highest court merged these various petitions into one and transformed them to themselves. The court raised the issues whether or not the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 and the Special Marriage Act 1954 can be read in a manner to include members from the LGBTQIA plus community. Right to marry is not expressly mentioned in the Constitution, but in the landmark case of Lata Singh versus State of Uttar Pradesh, the Supreme Court interpreted it to be a part of the Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. The Supreme Court in this case of marriage stated that after a person becomes major, he or she can marry whomsoever he or she likes. The court further opined that the maximum the parent can do is that they can cut all their ties from their children, but can't threaten or kill them. In both the acts, nothing is mentioned which would be prohibiting the same-sex marriage. There are conditions mentioned which must be before the marriage take effect under the Hindu Marriage Act and Special Marriage Act, and none of them are violating if the same-sex marriage occurs. For the special form of marriage, the conditions that must be followed are not very different from the requirement of the normal marriages that happen within the case, within the caste. The conditions to qualify the marriage under this act, the bridegroom must be at least 21 years of age, and at the time of the marriage, the bride must be at least 18 years of age. This is the minimum age limit respectively for a boy or a girl to marry. At the time of their marriage, both parties must be monogamous, that they must be unmarried at the time should not have any spouse. In order to be able to decide for themselves, the parties should be mentally fit. That is, they must be sane at the time of marriage. They should not take it to themselves through blood relationships. They should not be subjected to prohibited relationships that otherwise act as a ground of dissolving their marriage. Special Marriage Act of 1954 lays down provisions of people of India and all Indian nationals in foreign countries, allowing them married to irrespective of their faith, caste, and religion. It's been 3 years when the apex court decriminalized homosexuality but didn't discuss about the civil rights of the LGBTQI community. The court also opposes all the petitions for granting same-sex marriage valid. This resulted in partial justice for the LGBTQI community. But this seems too contradictory in the light of the judicial pronouncement, considering that if we really want to adhere to the principle of equality in the context of LGBT people, then the right to marry, bequeath property, share, insurance, medical, and life are all part of this. Therefore, denial of these basic rights only on the basis of sexual orientation is objectionable and unconstitutional, violating the constitutional rights of right to equality, which is Article 14, and right to liberty, Article 19. There are instances where the same-sex marriage got acceptance and got recognized by the court. After the decriminalization of homosexuality in 2009, the Haryana High Court effectively recognized marriage between two lesbians, but a more significant judgment came in 2019 after the scrapping of Section 377 by the Supreme Court in 2019. A bench of Madras High Court upheld the marriage between a biological man and a trans woman under the Hindu Marriage Act 1956, and the court further directed to register their marriage. The denial of marriage rights to LGBTQI community people deprives same-sex couples of social and legal recognition as well as the state benefits that married persons enjoy. However, it is essential to point out that institution of marriage since its inspection has been exclusionary towards certain communities of people, and whenever any group of people has been included or excluded from being able to marry, it has always been accompanied with a battle between public policy, region, and social norms. The other council takes from here. Thank you.
With your lordship permission, I will continue the issues of the case.
Yes, please proceed.
Your ladyship also says, please proceed.
Issue 2. Whether or not civil rights can be granted to the members of the community. It is necessary to grant the civil rights to the member of this community because if the court does not grant the civil rights, they continuously face discrimination in the society and they are also criticized and have been tortured by other people. Though the Transgender Person Protection of Rights Bill 2019 has been enacted with an objective to protect the rights of the transgender community by prohibiting discrimination against them with regards to employment, education, healthcare, access to government or private establishment. But in the name of empowering the community, the bill further exposes them to institutional ill treatment and dehumanizes their body and identity. The trans community in India has vehemently rejected the bill, citing following provision of the bill as they infringe their fundamental rights and do not comply with the judgment of Nalsa versus Union of India. Tushar Nayyar filed a writ petition before the Supreme Court to seek civil rights for the LGBTQIA+ community. However, on 29 October 2018, the Supreme Court dismissed the petition. One side, the judgment of Nartej Singh Johar versus the Union of India was incomplete judgment, as the Honorable Supreme Court, while legitimizing homosexual relation, failed to recognize and legitimized all such rights that heterosexual couples enjoy. They also oppose their civil rights by dismissing their petition for seeking civil rights for LGBTQIA+ community. They should get
Counsel, if I may interrupt, if this issue has already been decided, why are we here today? Why should we look at this again?
After the filing of the writ petitions, again various writ petitions filed for the same cause. Then the highest court of the Republic of Triplemento decided to recheck all these petitions and decide the matter. They should get the same right as available to the heterosexual couples so that the LGBTQIA plus community also ordinarily enjoy their lives as normal people do. The basic rights which the LGBTQ community need are right to protection against discrimination on the ground of sexual orientation, the right to adoption, and the right to marriage. LGBT people are battling for their civil rights and equal rights as the other people have. LGBT people continue to face real discrimination in all areas of life. No law prevent a person from being fired or refused a job on the basis of sexual orientation. Sexual orientation can still be the basis for employment decision in both the public and private sectors. In most states and municipalities, they face violent hate crimes against them. We need to have strict law reform and as well as good moral education system. Criminals are studied with their behavior so that after knowing the cause, we can conclude the effective reforms. And this could be done focusing on all the aspects and by raising the voice against it. Be it majority or minority, the violence is leading the humans nowhere. And therefore, as a recent example, Australia has allowed LGBT marriage nationwide. And this is an example how evolved mindset can bring change, peace, and harmony. And this is the ultimate goal to attain the desired result. More accepting nature and understanding the importance of adaptive and revamped structure will give society a good head start. One of the essential facets of the right to life enshrined under Article 21 of the Constitution of India is the right to marriage. Even individual has a right to choose his her partner with whom he she wants to marry. This exercise of choosing a partner is a part of the right to dignity of an individual. An individual who is above the age of 18 years is considered to be mature enough to understand the implication of his or her decision in exercise of the choice by an individual. The
If
interference
I
of
may interrupt again, sorry. Can you also tell me what is the relief that you are seeking ultimately?
we seek for its civil rights for the LGBTQIA plus community,
Okay,
which includes right to life, right to adoption, right to protection from discrimination.
right. Okay, but all of this will have regard to the act. So can we talk about the acts involved over here? I know your co-counsel mentioned them briefly. So if you would like, maybe he could address the question, but I think maybe to what extent can we rewrite the act? We'd like to know that.
We can we can make a separate law for them where all the rights and duties and the punishments are given which are totally related to the LGBTQIA plus community.
But see, counsel, as the court, we are not, our business is not lawmaking as such. What we can do is maybe perhaps interpret the law a particular way, but we cannot rewrite the law, which I think the respondents will stress on as well.
So we can make the amendments or we can make the already enacted laws are gender neutral.
Right, that's correct. So could we perhaps, or could you take us through the provisions or some relevant provisions of the act, or perhaps your co-counsel could, since he dealt with it, and show us how it can be interpreted as gender neutral?
One of the example instances that there are the condition given in the Hindu Law Act there which is given a bride and the bridegroom. We can interpret in that way that because they didn't mention that their marriage, the wedding happened between the bride and the bridegroom, we can say the bride should be of the age of 21 and the bridegroom should be the age of 18. So it means there can be the two bridegroom or the two bride who can marry each other. And the other act is sexual harassment, protection from sexual harassment at the workplace. So that act should also be a gender neutral.
Okay, please proceed.
However, the right to marriage is not available to the members of the LGBT community of India in the present time. But this seems to be contradictory in the light of the judicial pronouncement in Navteej Singh Johar case, considering that if we really want to adhere to the principle of equality in the context of LGBT people, then the right to marry, bequeath property, share insurance, and are all part of this. Therefore, denial of these basic rights only on the basis of sexual orientation is objectionable and unconstitutional, violating the constitutional rights of right to equality and liberty. In India, marriages and weddings are considered a sacred thing. Marriage, apart from regulating sex life, is also a relationship grounded on economical and emotional interdependency. The religious ceremonies are conducted are also considered an essential part of marriage. This perhaps explains why the LGBT community in India is so eager to get the legal right to marry out. Why there are so many instances of gay and lesbian marriage performed in India by the exchange of garlands in temples or quasi legal friendship contracts in several reported cases. The denial of marriage rights to LGBTQ plus community deprives same-sex couple of social and legal recognition as well as the state benefits that married person enjoy. However, it is essential to point out that the institution of marriage since its inception has been exclusionary towards certain communities of people, and whenever any group of people has been included or excluded from being able to marry, it has always been accompanied with a battle between public policy, religion, and social norms. Same-sex marriage are not legal in India. Therefore, homosexual couples are not allowed to adopt a child together. The law debars the LGBTQIA plus community from adopting children together, demonstrating that homosexual couples still aren't equal before the law. While LGBTQIA plus couples are not entitled to adopt a child, India's orphans are increasing each day. According to a new study by an international charity for orphaned and abandoned children, India is a home to 20 million orphans, a figure projected to increase by 2021. Most of the orphanages maintain abysmally poor quality service in the orphanage. Disturbingly, the law expects abandoned children to be raised without a family rather than being brought up by a homosexual and trans couples. With a new surrogacy bill, homosexual couples are also prohibited to have their own children through a surrogate mother, introduced to prevent commercialization of surrogacy and to prohibit potential exploitation of the surrogate mother and the child. The bill is restricted to marry Indian couples and by this disqualifies other person on the basis of marital status and sexual orientation. The other issue is whether or not the customs, traditions, rites, ritual form an exhaustive code as contested by the Republic of Replimento. This is true. Customs, traditions, rites, rituals play a very important role in framing any code of law, as all these are the sources from where we get the idea what to add in the law. However, for the development of the country, we must filter all these customs, tradition, rites, and rituals according to the need of the hour. The legislature of a country must think twice before adding any customs, ritual, traditions to the code and should not make them the law before giving due consideration and it can violate the fundamental rights of the people. We know that these customs, tradition, rituals do not give recognition to the same-sex marriage, but we should amend the things. In order to recognize these marriage, it is necessary to form a code for this community or the code give the guidelines which should be followed by the legislature to give a code to
Council,
them.
can I interrupt you? Do you have any case laws to submit your to support your submission about the customs, codes, and rituals?
Sorry, I have no case.
And your co-counsel, do you have anything to submit in this regard?
No, ma'am.
Okay, no problem.
The other issue is whether or not members from the said community can be allowed to be married as per the rituals of their respective religion. The member of these community cannot be allowed to be married as per the rituals of their respective religion after the Aryan invasion, but they should be allowed to marry the members of this community according to their choices as it is their fundamental right. We should change our customs and rituals with the need of an hour. Therefore, the member of their religion and their family should be supportive and help them and should not abandon or use them and not make them feel unwanted. Same-sex marriages are not a new phenomenon in India. Homosexuality has an ancient history in India. The homosexuality can be traced to the Rig Veda, which dates around 1500 BC. On examining the religious standing of same-sex marriages in India, it can be summarized in Hinduism. While the followers of Hinduism have different stances of homosexuality as a whole, however, there is enough literature available in Hinduism that speaks volume about same-sex relationship. There are temple carvings in India depicting same-sex relationships. Instances can also be found in various mythical stories, such as God Ayyappa being born out of Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu, story of Bhagirath being born from two women who had sexual intercourse under divine blessings, description of homosexual acts. In Islam, there is a in Islam, Islamic Sharia law is extracted from the Quran and Muhammad Sunnah. It's very clear in Islam that homosexuality is a punishable sin. Same as go with the Christianity. There is also a restriction or prohibition in the homosexuality. In Parsis, also homosexuality is condemned, but however, the court should think to add the provision for same-sex marriage under the Special Marriage Act by some amendments in it. If the court cannot make amendments in the Special Marriage Act, then the court can give the guidelines for the same. At
Council, are you aware of any precedent where such guidelines may have been laid down? May help us to assess the scope of our own powers.
in the right to protection from exploitation under sorry protection from sexual harassment from at the workplace, there the court gives the guidelines for the same and make the act. So
Correct. You're talking about Vishakha.
yeah, Vishakha
Yes, sir.
versus state of
Shaka was a
Rajasthan.
state of Rajasthan.
Okay, please proceed.
With your lordship permission, I would like to submit the prayer at last.
Sure, please.
Wherefore, in the light of the legal precedents and principles cited, and in the light of the provisions of the law applied and the arguments, the counsel for the petitioner most humbly prays for the Honorable Highest Court of the Republic of Sacramento to grant the LGBTQIA plus community all the civil rights which the ordinary possess when possessed, and to uphold the validity of the same-sex marriage and pass any order, direction, or relief that it may deem fit in the best interest of justice, fairness, equity, and good conscience. And for this act of kindness, the petitioner shall be duty bound forever. This concludes our submission.
Okay, respondents, what do you all have to say?
My lords, if my lords are well versed with the facts, maybe begin with the arguments and points.
Yes, please.
Your lordship, the first issue that lies before this court is whether or not the Hindu Marriage Act and the Special Marriage Act can be read in a manner to include the members of the LGBTQ plus community. Basically, this is asking that Section 5 of HMA and Section 4 of SMA, it uses the term any two Hindus and any two persons. So can this word any to Hindus and any to persons be interpreted in such a manner that any to Hindus of same sex? The qualifications for a marriage talks about any to Hindus who are not bigamous and insane, they can marry. So the question for this court is whether any to Hindus mean any to Hindus of same sex. Now, this calls for interpretation of statute. So, my lords, in the case decided by the Supreme Court itself, Bharti International versus Bulk Trading and another, the Supreme Court said that the conventional way of interpreting a statute is to seek the intention of its makers and then apply it to the case at hand. My lords, the intention of the legislature is paramount. When the honorable court shall be interpreting the statute, it should keep in mind that the interpretation of a statutory provision which defeats the intent and purpose of the statute which was enacted shall be avoided. The court must have regard to the intent of the legislature. Every statute must be construed ex viceribus actus, that is within the four corners of the act. When construing the terms of any provision found in a statute, the court is bound to consider the parts of the statute which throw light on the intention of the legislature. No part of a statute should be construed in isolation. For the intention of the law.
Also, sorry if I may interrupt. Now,
Yes, my lord.
firstly, Bhatia International was a case within the commercial sphere. It was related to arbitration law.
Yes,
Secondly, it's also a case that has been overruled, and in fact, it's become quite infamous over the years.
Yes, my lord.
So, could you tell us why we should refer to this case at all?
Yes, my lord. My lord, although it is a case law regarding to the commercial activities, the part that I am citing over here, the part of the judgment that I am citing over here has got nothing to do with commercialization. It is actually talking about interpretation of a statute. I can give more judgments which say the same thing, that the intent of the legislature should be the first thing that the court must look into while interpreting a statute. The literary rule, the golden rule, and the other rules are all right, but the court should look at what the legislature actually intended to write. As per the question, as it has been overruled, I'll have to, I beg pardon in that matter. I did not know this, but I'm pretty sure that even in the overruled judgment, some other the rationale given behind overruling that judgment would have been regarding the technical aspects of that case and not related to this part. I'm pretty confident with this, my lord.
Sure, please proceed.
Thank you, my lord. As I was talking, my lord, the word any to Hindus, when the court has to interpret this, it should not look into an isolation. It should look at the entire statute and all the relevant provisions which throw light upon this word. That is, the court should read the entire statute and then decide what this word means. Okay. Okay. The internal aids to interpretation. My lords, the petitioner have completely failed to show how these two words should be interpreted in a manner to imbibe the homosexual couples as well. My lords, the internal aids to interpretation, like context and the title of the statute, heading, proviso, explanation, all point towards one thing, that the parliament intended to codify the ancient texts relating the marriage of male and female humans in a heterosexual manner. Because the parliament has used the words husband and wife, nowhere such a word has been used that a husband and husband can marry. Wherever there has been, wherever the parliament is talking about in the case of a divorce or in a case of alimony, it is talking about a husband and a wife. So in this case, and if we look at the external aids to the interpretation of the statute, like parliamentary history of enactment and the legislative debates and previous legislation on this, all make it crystal clear that nowhere did the parliament intend to inculcate in this act or in any act homosexual couples. My lords, maxim expressum facit cessari taciturn. This maxim says that when there is an express mention of certain things, then anything not mentioned has to be excluded. These words put an end to the implication. The ordinary rule of construction is to assign the word a meaning which it ordinarily carries. when the parliament has itself omitted to write the word husband and husband and husband and wife, the court shall take it as it is, and the word Hindus and any two persons shall not be interpreted in a manner to inculcate in it homosexual couples. My lords, the second issue that lies before the court is whether or not civil rights should be granted to the members of this community. As given in Section 5 of Hindu Marriage Act and Section 4 of the Hindu Marriage Act, any two Hindus and any two persons, my lords, I would like to put forth before this court that if marriage was a human right available to every person, then why it was barred for people suffering from leprosy, people who are suffering from insanity, people who are suffering from impotency, or people who are suffering from lack of sufficient age, or maybe convicted of life imprisonment or bestiality. This all points to the fact that the right to marriage, as explained by our counsel, that it is a fundamental right under 21. It is a qualified right and it is not an absolute right. This is a qualified right because so many people who are underage and who are insane or who are impotent, they have all their absolute rights like right to life, but they do not have the right to marriage. So
Counsel, those are issues of consent more than anything. Over here, what is the issue if two consenting adults want to marry? Surely you're not comparing two consenting adults with, say, child marriage. Because over there, it becomes an issue of consent. The children are incapable of giving consent.
Okay. My lords, then people who are convicted of life imprisonments, there is a debate going on that whether they should be allowed to marry. If marriage was, if the consent was an issue, if only consent was an issue, why they are denied this? Or why impotency, the people who are impotent and people who are suffering from leprosy, although it has been removed now because leprosy is almost non-existent, but let us assume that it is, or maybe if we go back a little bit in time, the leprosy suffering people, they could very well give consent, but they were not allowed. It is because, my lords, those people, they cannot fulfill the obligations of a married life. Marriage is an institution which is made so that the society prospers and moves ahead. That is, procreation is one of the major reasons why we have the institution of marriage. And the same-sex couples cannot reprocreate. The LGBTQ plus community, my lords, has under its umbrella people who identify as bisexuals and transsexual and intersexuals. Now, a bisexual person is a person who identifies himself both as a man and both as a woman. Many problems will arise if we allow them to marry, because a person may assume the role of a man and get married, and then disputes may occur that he sometimes identifies as wife. This is a very complicated issue. What will we do as transsexual people? My lords, impotency is a bar. It is a ground for divorce. How will we satisfy impotency for transsexual people who are not potent? So many provisions of this statute, Hindu Marriage Act and the Special Marriage Act, will stay defeated. Your Lordship, laws are meant to regulate society, and certain restrictions are very essential for moral good. Because if impugned logic is extended further, one may argue that he has a right to nudity. One may argue that he has a right to public display of affection. Or one may argue that he has the right to use narcotics, drugs, and psychotropic substances for recreational purposes. But we do not allow it, right? I know that the Western society is quite liberal with this, but Indian society is, the Replimentian society is not yet ready for it. And it is clearly impossible to fit all these cases. The LGBTQIA plus, and it plus denotes that there are various other people. All of these cannot be squeezed and put into the Hindu Marriage Act, which was specifically made for heterogeneous couples following the Hindu religion, that is Sikh, Buddhism, and all. They cannot all be choked into this. This is a domain of legislature to say the best. This is not.
So then why not the Special Marriage Act? I understand your concerns about say maybe Hindu society not being ready for this or for changes to the Hindu Marriage Act. But the Special Marriage Act, the purpose was to allow for secular marriages. So why not the Special Marriage Act?
My lord, again, we'll have to interpret any two persons marry, so we'll have to again go to the title, the short title, the context, the internal age interpretation. If we go into that, the intent of the legislature was to make a secular statute, a secular code, so that people who are of different faiths may get a chance to marry, because it was not possible in the personal laws. Now, the intent of the legislature was to allow people of interfaith to marry, and not to allow people of same faith or interfaith of same sex to marry. So this argument stands nullified, my lord.
But we can draw an analogy, right? So if the intent of the legislature was to make it secular, that means the intent of the legislature was to make it inclusive. So now as society progresses, the meaning of inclusion also progresses.
Okay, may I extend this argument and say that let us make it very inclusive and allow people who are suffering from leprosy into it, people who are suffering from insanity into it, shouldn't we? But we do not. There are certain the people suffering from insanity cannot fulfill the marital obligations. Marriage is an institution. It is not your absolute right that it is my right to life. It is a qualified right.
So, counsel, are you trying to equate the people belonging to the LGBT community to basically mean that you have a disease, or that you have whether a physical or a mental disease? Because examples like leprosy and insanity basically lead to one thinking that it's a mental or a physical illness.
That's
at least that's the comparison I'm getting.
My ladyship, that's extrapolation. All I wanted to say is there are certain restrictions. I can give other bars to marriage as well. I'm not intending in any manner that it is a disease. All I'm saying is, may I proceed, my lord?
I have taken note of the time. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Your lordships, accepting an anomaly is a different thing, but legalizing something is equivalent to supporting it. One certainly can't desire this phenomena of being homosexual or transsexual to be ubiquitous, that is to be rampant, to be everywhere, because this would handicap the society and defeat procreation, which is the ultimate purpose of marriage. The Replementan society is getting ready to accept something that is different from the natural. But if the legal sanction was to be given to it, it would make it rampant. And can the Replementan society would want it to be rampant? My lords, the court must bear in mind that if it declares something to be a law, or if the legislature also declares something to be a law, that is, it passes an act, it should not be such that the society outright rejects it. First, a consensus should be built, and then it should be legislated. Let us say if we force the two-child policy in our society, or if we force the common civil code, actually the answer lies to common civil code. If we force it, the society will revolt. So if the Supreme Court today decides to interpret any two Hindus in a manner so as to include homosexual people, there will be chaos.
As the state, it's your responsibility to enforce whatever the law is. I mean, take for example, the Sabrimala judgment. We did interfere, right? You could say that we did interfere in religious customs for the sake of progress, for the sake of progress of a certain section of society.
Yes, your lord. 13(2)(b) says that. What did the Supreme Court do in the Sabrimala judgment? When the fundamental right to marriage is given, I would like to ask 1 or 2 more minutes, my lord, in my personal time.
Yes, please proceed.
The restrictions given to the fundamental rights, they say to public moral and the other restrictions that are given to the right to religion, it allows the Supreme Court to hinder something. It does not allow the Supreme Court to add something. The Supreme Court, my point is, in the Sabrimala judgment, something wrong was going on, and the Supreme Court stopped it. Here, the Supreme Court is trying to become, if at all the Supreme Court tries to liberally interpret it, the Supreme Court is not trying to stop something. It is trying to create something. And that power has not been given in the Article 13, which says that subject to public morality. And this subject to public morality, you can banish a personal law. That is, say, triple talaq, although it was a different issue. But let's say a personal law exists that is very abhorrent to human rights. The Supreme Court can nullify it. Supreme Court cannot create another law. It is, Supreme Court does not have the authority to do it as per the Constitution.
Counsel for the petitioner relied on Vishakha to tell us that we can, in fact, issue rules and regulations and guidelines
Yes,
if and where needed.
Agreed. There existed. There was already a statute in existence, I think, prevention. No, they did not. The council.
It's fine. Proceed.
Does not know the answer of this, my lord.
Please proceed.
Thank you, my lord. The next point that I would like to put forward before this court is that libido, that is the desire to have more sex, it gets enhanced by stimulation. If at all this was legalized, the message that would go into the society, one cannot fathom the possibilities of mishappenings that will begin to occur. As children under influence of their youth and hormones will get encouraged by this judgment and get engaged in illicit activities in their hostels. It is impossible to prevent or detect such cases of child molestation if at all this was allowed, because every time they will have a defense that now that homosexual act is decriminalized, and also there is a right to marry. So we will.
But surely there's no scientific basis for this. I mean, if it is natural, then it is natural. We've already ruled homosexuality as natural.
Of course, my lord. Of course, my lord.
Allowing marriage,
may I
how
give an
will that
example?
change anything?
Yes, heterosexual desires are also natural, but rapes do occur, don't they?
So should we outlaw all marriages?
No, we should not outlaw all marriages, but we should keep an okay. So therefore, we have the concept of unisex hotels in India, hostels in India. Why do we not have unisex hostels? We study in co-ed classrooms. Why do we not give them a chance so that they may engage into certain activities which are objectionable?
But they could still be doing that.
They could still be doing that, but there is a
What
fear.
will marriage change? I mean, this argument may have made some sort of sense perhaps when we were discussing 377. 377 is gone now.
377 is gone, but when the court will finally let the members of the LGBT community have the right to marry, the message that will go into the society, this will invigorate the sexual predators of homosexual nature. They will have a very strong argument in that backing, and they will misuse it to children who are barely above 18 years of age. And always use, one must always remember, my lord, in Hindu Marriage Act, the point consent does not occur. Consent is not a factor. Right? In the Special Marriage Act, the consent of the bridegroom is important, but in the Hindu Marriage Act, consent is nowhere mentioned. A bridegroom married against a consent is perfectly okay if she's above the marriageable age. It is a perfectly valid marriage. So if we allow it under Hindu Marriage Act, how will we explain that forced, coerced, such things happening? I hope we know that in Bihar, there is a case of Pakda Hua Vivah, where young engineers are captured and forcefully married, because consent is not a factor for a divorce. So if we interpret Hindu Marriage Act into this, it will have rampant ramifications which will be impossible to detect or impossible to stop. The cure, my lord, would produce more harmful effects than the problem itself. And if we otherwise also speculate further, nearly a dozen acts are in force to regulate the aftermath of what is called as marriage. That is laws like adoption, inheritance, maintenance, divorce. Can the Supreme Court really tell?
Sorry,
that
I didn't buy your consent point because the Hindu Marriage Act does talk about consent.
Hindu Marriage Act, please
So
enlighten me.
voidable marriage if the consent of the petitioner was obtained by
Underage,
force.
underage. Does it talk about that a 21-year-old lady,
Look at
or maybe 22
12C and maybe
I
take
don't
me
have-
through it.
Okay, let me open it. Well, what does it say? If you can.
I mean, just take a look at it. Perhaps you can look it up online if you'd like.
Yes, I have the act open right before me. Grant me 1 second. 12C, right? Okay, this is the Hindu Marriage Act. 12C, voidable marriages. 12(1)(c), that the consent of the petitioner or where the consent of the guardian the marriage was it called? I was not very prudent while reading the statute, my lord.
It's okay. It's okay. Proceed.
I really beg pardon. I didn't know this, but I had omitted this. Okay. I would conclude and pass it over to my co-counsel. I was talking about that nearly a dozen other acts are in force, like maintenance acts and inheritance acts and divorce act. Just by interpreting one letter, there'll be many complications. Like in the cases of alimony, the Hindu marriage talks about that only wife will get alimony, and Special Marriage Act says that both husband and wife will get the alimony. How will we decide who's the husband, who's the wife? The court will actually have to virtually cut it, and it will ultimately have to make another law. So let this be done. Let this onus be shifted to the legislature, which has the rightful owner to do this. Severage
Again, that I think that'd be the same issue if you look at Section 25. But I mean, it's okay. You can continue with your arguments.
Section 20. Okay. Huh. Yes, yeah, you're right. A very important fact is that this is okay. We were talking about the Hindus, but we will not. The court is not at least opining to allow only Hindu homosexual couples, right? It will be allowing Muslim couples as well. So, and in Islam, in Shariat law and in the biblical law, it is punishable with death. If at all this was allowed, it would not reform the Islamic community in India. It would break it. There will be violent repercussions. So this is another factor why this should not be allowed. And the last point that I have to put before is, yeah, I have already covered that point. I would ask my co-counsel to continue with it.
Greetings, Your Honor.
Yes, please proceed.
If it may please the court, counsel seeks permission to resume the arguments for issue number 3 and 4.
Yes, please. Could you also tell us what issue numbers 3 and 4 are again?
Yes, sir. Lordship, issue 3 asks whether or not the customs, traditions, rites, rituals form an exhaustive code as contested by Republic of Replimento. Lordship, the word exhaustive means a complete set, a complete list, that is, no addition to the existing list is possible. If it were possible, if it were not exhaustive, state could legislate into this issue, and courts could give directions and issue guidelines in furtherance of the enacted statutes. Hence, the issue before us asks if something can be added to the personal laws or not. As per Article 25, Clause 1 of the Constitution, which gives freedom of religion, states that all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right to freely profess, practice, and propagate their religion. Article 26b states that every religious denomination of any section thereof shall have the right to manage its own affairs in matters of religion, And Article 13, Clause 2 states that the state shall not make any law which takes away or abridges the rights conferred by this part, and any law made in contravention of this clause shall, to the extent of the contravention, be void. Hence, right to freedom of religion bars the state to interfere in religious affairs, and therefore civil affairs are governed by personal laws. That is to say that state cannot overrule the supremacy of religious texts and amend rules by the method of legislation. It is ultra wise for the legislature to legislate in this sphere. The personal laws are laid by religious texts and were explained by religious scholars. And the codified law is nothing but the consolidation of ancient text. There are 8 kinds of marriages as per Hindu law: Brahma Vivah, Deva Vivah, Arsha Vivah, Prajapatya Vivah, and Asur Vivah, Gandharva Vivah, Rakshas Vivah, and Pisacha Vivah. None of these 8 forms of marriage allows a homosexual marriage. Uncountable number of judgments from the era of Privy Council has left no dimensions untouched for which either a codified law or a precedent does not exist. Nowhere has any judgment ever been recorded recognizing homosexual marriage, nor there is any statute for it. Also, the ancient text bars the authority of any augmentation. Hence, customs, traditions, rites, and rituals being an exhaustive code, there can be no legislative interference in this regard, let alone interpretation of this effect. Lordship, now I would proceed with issue number 4, which asks whether or not members from the said community can be allowed to be married as per the rules of their respective religion. What makes a religion distinct from other? Certain distinct set of rules. In SP Mittal versus Union of India and others, the 5-judge constitutional bench declared that every religious denomination under Article 26 must satisfy 3 conditions. A, it must be a collection of individuals who have system of beliefs which regard as conducive to their spiritual well-being, that is a common faith. B, common organization. And C, designation by a distinctive name. One cannot argue that he is a Muslim, but shall be allowed to tie Mangal Sutra and take a Saptapadi. Deviation from the doctrine result in breach of the first condition, that is common faith, and thus one loses his religion. Now, homosexuality is punishable with death in Sharia law and biblical laws, and is also considered as a sin. How can one demand to do act which is so abhorred in this religion under their religious sanction itself? One cannot be a Muslim if he says that he is a Muslim, or that his neighbor believes that he is a Muslim, or he reads 5 times namaz a day. There is a prescribed way to convert to Islam. Similarly, there are some acts for which one gets banished from one's own religion, and this applies to all the religion. Religious tenets are not seen in vacuum with application to each individual as a unique case. Rather, the general rule applies to all followers of that faith. If one has such extreme desire to go against the basic tenets of the religion, he has to leave the religion altogether. If one wants to be governed by the rituals of a religion, one has to conform by the essential rules. No religion identifies same-sex marriage, and no pandit, clergyman, or qazi can be forced to solemnize a marriage which is grossly in violation of their religious belief. Therefore, members of the LGBTQIA+ community cannot be allowed to be married as per the sacred rituals of their respective religion. I've done with my issue, and if your honor is satisfied, I would like my co-counsel to go with the prayer.
Sure, please.
My lords, 4 issues were raised before this court, and the Republic of Replemento has put forth its advanced arguments, and the Republic of Replemento would earnestly plead before this court to adjudge the following points, that the existing statutes of the Hindu Marriage Act and the Special Marriage Act cannot be widely interpreted in a marriage to absorb same-sex couples into it. And it may also, if the court pleases, adjudge that the purpose of marriage would stand defeated in case of homosexual couples and in context of replementant society, and therefore it cannot be allowed. And no religious text of any of the religion has any scope of amendment by the state or the court. So the personal laws cannot be interfered with, and in the existing scheme that occurs, same-sex marriage cannot be allowed under any religion or the Special Marriage Act, and therefore this petition shall be dropped. And for this act of kindness, the respondent, as in duty bound, shall ever humbly pray.
Do the petitioners wish to respond to any of the points that were raised?
Yes, I would like to question to the second counsel from the respondent side that she mentioned that
You can address your concerns to us, your arguments to us. We'd prefer if you didn't talk across the bar.
she mentioned that the one should not violate or oppose the religious behavior. in in the same instance which she gave, that the Muslims condemn the same-sex marriage or homosexuality, then the Muslims also restrict or deny the intercaste marriage, but that is permitted through the same Special Marriage Act. So the same-sex marriage should also be granted through the Special Marriage Act or in the other way. And the other question which arises, that the first council said that the impotence is the ground for the divorce, but it is a ground for the divorce when there is a consent of the one, or there is a conflict between them. But there is a consent between both the parties that they want to marry each other, and they are well versed with the consequences that they can't procreate the child. That's why they want to get the civil rights, for example, right to adoption, so that they can procreate their child.
May I answer to this, my lord?
Yes, please.
To the first point issued by the lady, yes, intercaste marriages among Muslims are allowed, but not under Sharia law, under the Special Marriage Act. If Hindus want to marry to a Muslim, he shall do that not under the Hindu religions and the Hindu rites and rituals. They will get it under the Special Marriage Act. So under Special Marriage Act, Muslims can do whatever they want, what is allowed. But this argument cannot be further extended to homosexual marriages. The Special Marriage Act is a secular act. All it does is removes away the disability of interfaith marriage and adds some extra features to it. This cannot be further pulled down to allow homosexuals. And yes, the second thing that she said, that the consent of the trans sexual couples will be there. What if a dispute arises? Will the right to divorce by on the ground of impotency be denied to the other spouse? Because the act is the act. So many cutpit will be required to do. I understand that they consensually go into this relationship and they are very well okay that both of them are impotent. But what if a dispute arises?
But they are already give the consent before the marriage. They are already know the well-verse of the situation.
Okay. So is the council implying to say that if two heterosexual Hindus get married under Hindu Marriage Act, they are very well consenting to it, they will never ever have any argument? All the things that they already consented to it, they will never ever have any difference upon it. What if they have a difference?
This is their choice.
This is their choice. I agree, this is their choice. But what if they sometimes have a dispute and one of the parties brings a suit of divorce on the ground of impotency?
Because of this only.
Counsel, please address your arguments to us rather than to each other.
My apologies.
Mahima, you can make your argument. All that we are saying is address it to us instead of talking to each other.
Yes. The other question is that, as the council mentioned, that Article 13 only hinders the court, powers the court that they can only hinder the law or restrict the law. But Article 13 also depicts that they can filter the law which can violate the fundamental rights of the people. And here the fundamental rights are violating of the LGBTQIA plus community. Then this rituals which make the law now can be filtered by the court so that no fundamental right can be violated of the LGBTQIA plus community.
Uh, my lords, I understand the concern raised by the council, but just one article that empowers the Supreme Court to uphold the constitutional rights and uphold the fundamental rights against the religious laws. It is a matter which is much more complicated than that. This is just not like this is not a case that whether somebody has committed a crime, yes or no. The entire code is very elaborate. Just by interpreting one word into another, the other provisions will get defeated. Even if the court chooses to do this, so many provisions will get defeated. Actually, it demands for a uniform civil code or a separate legislation for homosexual couples. The Supreme Court cannot just interpret one word into the another or strike off some things, and this will be a chaos if heavens will fall if the Supreme Court does this.
Okay, is there anything else?
I would like to mention that just because the procedure is so complicated, so should we have to violate the fundamental rights of the community just because the court shouldn't want to do the complicated things by making the procedures for them?
Council would like to answer this question, if your lordship permit. There is no violation of fundamental right here. There is a violation of civil right here. Fundamental right has already been granted to the homosexuals in the case of Navtej Johar versus Union of India, like declaring it to be natural. So there is no violation of fundamental right. It is a violation, like civil right is being violated, but it is just to protect Article 25, 26 of the Constitution, which is a fundamental right.
Council, if I may interrupt, I think the counsel for the petitioner also argued that the right to marry is part of the fundamental rights available under Article 21. They cited case law in support of this to argue that it is a part of the right to life, and as such, they are entitled to equality. So,
Your Honor, definitely, Your Honor, right to marry is definitely a fundamental right, provided that it is subject to public morality. It is subject to public morality, first of all, and here the society is not ready to accept this. So therefore, it is in violation with that. It provides some restriction along with it. It is like every fundamental right has some restrictions attached to it, and same with right to marry also.
May I add something, my lord?
Yes, please.
I understand the concern expressed by the council that it is a gross violation of a fundamental right, but we have seen that this issue is much more complicated, and this cannot be remedied by the judiciary. It demands for a legislation, and this, if at all, should be solved. It will be solved by an act. We have already discussed at length why one word's interpretation, wide interpretation, will not solve the problems, rather create more problems. So I understand. I get it that it is a gross violation of Article 21, fundamental right to marriage, but this will be remedied by a legislation. If the council, I would, my lord, I would advise the council to go and meet the legislatures and talk to.
So why can't we lay down guidelines then? We don't have to adopt an all or nothing approach.
We can
Maybe
always-
okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. Please go ahead.
And we can always direct the legislature to bring out a law in this aspect. So until the law comes in, guidelines would be applicable.
Will not the judiciary be interfering into the domain of legislature by doing this?
No,
That's what we did in Vishakha, right? That's what the counsel for the petitioner argued, that that's what we did in Vishakha, and we can do that. We're not telling you what to enact. You can enact whatever you want whenever you want, but until then, we're laying down guidelines for this.
And this has been time and again done in a variety of commercial cases as well, to bring down to basically lay down certain guidelines.
Okay, I agree. Yes, the Supreme Court can very well do it, and Supreme Court may do it. But this petition has been filed to read the Hindu Marriage Act and the Special Marriage Act. They should go and file another writ petition requesting the court to order for such legislation. In their prayer, they
Surely
said
we can mold the relief. I mean, we don't have to grant them exactly what they've asked for. We can mold the
this
relief.
was not there in their written submissions, my lord, or nor was there in their oral submissions. They never asked for it. Why does the court want to give something which they did not ask for? Ordinarily, the court would ask them to file another writ petition. This was a misdirected shot. I understand their concern, but this was a misdirected shot. They were asking for wrong prayers.
Nevertheless, even if they were, my point still stands. We can still lay down whatever we think is right for the people, whether or not they've asked for the correct relief.
Will the state have a right to be heard in that matter, my lord?
Counsel, are you aware of Article 142 of the Constitution? You must once read that as well and see that as well.
I'm forgetting 142. Just the heading.
It talks about the enforcement of decrees and orders of Supreme Court and orders as to discovery.
Okay, I agree. Yes, it talks about that. I got reminded, but the state of Replimento is asking, will it be made a party to be heard? Will it given be a chance to be heard again on this issue? If at all the Supreme Court wants to go all the way and create those guidelines.
To set out the guidelines, once we set out the guidelines,
would we be heard in that matter? Because we strongly contend that the Supreme Court is interfering into our domain.
You can always challenge it, and we can always hear the challenge.
Yes. The Supreme Court is being very generous with the petitioners.
It's not a question of being generous with the petitioners. It's a question of fundamental rights. In any case, is there anything else?
Your Lordship, there would be violation of Article 25 and 26, right to religion.
Noted.
So,
does anybody else have any other arguments to address on this? Otherwise, I think we've got everything.
My lord, I would like to ask one question before we end this meeting.
Sure.
Which is obviously not part of the this court process.
Okay, that's what I mean. Are you guys done with your arguments? If you are done, I think we can proceed to feedback and like discussions.
What should be the answer to this, that if the Supreme Court wants to become too generous and issue the guidelines so as to pass an order for creation of a legislation, what should the state?
Honestly, I mean, you handled it as well as probably can be handled, because at the end of the day, the Supreme Court can pretty much do what they want. They have done pretty much what they want. The best you can say is that don't interfere in the domain of the legislature, which is, I think, to some extent what you did say. So,
and if we want to win the case, that is, if you are too adamant, if the, let's say, the ruling party is very adamant that it will not be allowed, what should it do? Should it challenge it again, because it's futile to challenge it? The Supreme Court will hear it and again throw it back.
I think the point simply is that for the purposes of the moot court, this is what you can do. What would happen in actual court, I mean, I'm not entirely sure. But again, for the purposes of a moot court, I don't think you have to worry too much about winning it. I think the respondent did have a fairly difficult case when it comes to this. But at least just on some of the issues. So I think you just, I mean, like they say, the job of a lawyer is to make even a bad case look good, right? So you aim to do that.
Okay, and a passing comment, I do not completely the arguments that I read did not actually reflect my intentions.
That's okay as a lawyer, and especially in a moot court. I mean, you have to argue what your client wants, right? So tomorrow, if you're, I mean, you can take a moral stance, but chances are you'll be arguing things and saying things that you don't necessarily agree with. So I think that's not so much an issue. Sorry, you were saying, Danya?
I was saying the client's interest is paramount, right? And over here, we are well aware that you guys are playing the roles of the petitioner and the respondent. So,
I would like to ask my Ms. Mahima one thing. I have many objections to what their arguments were there. She said
I think
that
that's beside the point. I mean, the moot is done, so I don't think there's any purpose arguing with
My
each
lord,
other
she
after
said
this,
something
because
very
as I said, they were also playing a role,
yes,
as were
my
you.
lord, they said I think a
So
false fact. They said that in the Rig Veda it is mentioned. It's not there. In Rig Veda, homosexuality does not exist.
In no Vedas it is mentioned homosexuality.
okay.
all right, beside the point again. So
Taken.
sorry.
And whatever discussions you want to have regarding each other's points, you all can always have it outside this forum. And I think we can move on to a general feedback, Risha.
Is that what we're supposed to do, Laksha? Should we give the feedback now?
Yes, sir. Feedbacks and final comments. And post that, we can conclude this proceeding.
Okay, Tanya, would you like to begin, or should I go ahead?
I'm fine with following.
Okay, so I think I just have a few general pointers. Firstly, in terms of structure, I think what you should do, not just in moot courts, but also in real life, and especially in moot courts, you should perhaps outline the structure of what you are going to argue and how you are going to argue it at the outset. So that may not necessarily be just your arguments. You can perhaps outline the issues that you are dealing with and the issues that your co-counsel will deal with, and then refer to the issues when you start arguing that particular issue. So it gives a better flow to the arguments. It helps us follow along, and it helps us know where we are. Because I think at some points during the arguments, for me at least, I did not even know when we were switching from one issue to the next issue, or when a speaker was about to conclude. So I think it's important to have that structure, because especially in a moot court, I say, because at the end of the day, you're also being marked on a lot of things, right? On a specific set of criteria. So I think structure is very, very important. So keep that in mind going forward. Also, I think I pointed it out a couple of times during the arguments also, but be careful about the law being cited, especially the case law being cited and the statutes being cited. Especially, I mean, if you're making a fairly basic point, you have dozens of case law to choose from, right? So choose a case that is, I guess, not overruled for one. So just be careful about that. Similarly, be careful when you're being adventurous. Say you're trying to interpret the statute. You're going to have to be sure that what you are saying matches or reflects what's in the statute. Because, okay, maybe in the heat of the moment, sure, somebody may not look up the statute or may not know it, and that may fly. But at the end of the day, or even a fact, right? Somebody said that a fact was not correct or whatever. So in the heat of the moment, maybe somebody won't pick it up, right? But I think generally, especially if you go into practice and all of that, you will need to be sure of the facts that you're putting down in writing at least. So just be careful about that as well. And also, I think refer more to the statute itself. I mean, especially if you're asking us to reinterpret a particular statute, perhaps take us through the statute. And if the other side has argued that a particular interpretation has to happen or does not have to happen, then perhaps counter those points by referring to the statute. I understand the policy implications of all this and the general societal importance of all of this, but at the end of the day, there is also law involved. So perhaps a little more reference could have been made to the law itself. So just some general pointers that I wanted to point out. Otherwise, great effort, guys. Obviously, we're all living in tough times. So it's great that you guys are doing this. So, yeah, Tanya, I think I'm done with my feedback.
So I absolutely agree with everything that Rishabh has told you all. I think the only few points that I would add is first, all of you should address all members of the bench, and if there's a female ladyship as well as so address both of them and not just one. The second thing is when you all are making your submissions, try to also support your arguments with case laws, and that's something I think I pointed out to one of you. And your points are very basic, and there are ample amount of judgments to support your points. It only makes your case stronger. So that is one thing. And I think the third thing is that when you're addressing the arguments, address it to the bench and not argue with each other. So these are my 3 points in addition to what Rishabh has said. Otherwise, great effort, guys.
Do you have any specific questions from us? I don't think we propose to do individual feedback over here at least, but do you have any specific questions in general? We'd be happy to at least try answering them. Okay, then if that's it, thanks guys.
Thank you so much for your valuable feedback, ma'am and sir. With this, we reach the conclusion of today's proceedings. I'd like to thank everyone for their time and participation. We may now leave the meeting and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Do the judges have to stay back to discuss or something? How do we?
So I've been instructed that the participants are supposed to leave. So ma'am and sir, if you wish to discuss, you may discuss after the participants leave this meeting.
Yeah, so we'll just hang on then, Tanya, for 2 minutes after the participants leave.
Thank you, teams. I request you to please leave the meeting.
Thank you so much, ma'am and sir, and our co-counsel.
Sir, ma'am, would you want me to leave the meeting as well so that you can have a confidential?
No, I mean,
all
if
right.
you'd like to, it's fine.
Thank you so much for your time. Good day.
Yeah, thank you.
Anjali, who is Jatin? Jatin is a participant, no?
Yeah. Jatin, are you done with your rounds? Oh, yeah, you are. If Laksha is here, you're also done. You can leave the meeting.
Yeah. Can we remove him? I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
Yeah, you please try.
Done.
So Anjali, my proceedings have ended, but the judges are still in the room discussing. So
Okay.
I asked the participants to leave first so that the judges can continue the discussion. And post that, even I left. I asked them, would you want me to leave so that you can have a confidential discussion? They said, okay, Laksha, if you please. So I left the meeting and I've come here. They're still discussing.
Okay, fine. So in the evening also, we'll do it this way only. I think at 4:30, you are assigned to courtroom number 2 only again.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
in the evening, I'll put the kids petitioner and respondent names as
Okay.
we did now. Please do that and
And
we'll
you-
continue.
Yeah. Okay. You will let us know the participants will be joining, no? In an hour.
Yeah,
or so.
so that I will update in the the link
Link.
that I sent.
Okay.
In that the Excel sheet, I'll update it. You guys can take a look and you can join 4:30 sharp again.